Welcome to Finding Your Piece of the Rock on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Abe Lee. I have been a licensed real estate agent since 1973, which makes it really, really old. And I'm fortunate to own Century 21 iProperties Hawaii with 100 plus wonderful agents. I started Abe Lee seminars in 1980. I have taught over 10,000 students in helping them to get their real estate licenses. And I also have taught continuing education for real estate agents who want to continue their education through every 2 years. Our show is dedicated to helping buyers and sellers understand the home real estate transaction process. Our special guests will deal with topics on law, escrow, title, getting a loan, surveys, home inspections, contracts, wills and trusts, etc. My special guest today is Mary Flood, who retired from D.R. Horton, the largest construction company in the nation and also in Hawaii. Mary has extensive experience in the area of real estate sales and marketing for decades. She is intelligent, experienced, and knows the real estate sales process. She has volunteered for nonprofit organizations. She has worked with trade associations such as Building Industry Association in Hawaii, and she was the president of that group. She was also the president of the Honolulu Board of Realtors and was honored as the Realtor of the Year in 2010. We're so fortunate to have her with us today. Mary will talk about the home buying process and why it's important to own a home instead of renting a home. Mary, thank you so much for being here. Mary, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Abe. It's always good to see you and talk with you.
So we're going to start off with a few questions. And first, can you tell us where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up in a very small town in Wisconsin called Eden, like the Garden of Eden. And I guess it was somewhat paradise. I had 8 brothers and sisters. And the nice thing about growing up in a small town is that you know everyone. It actually gave me a basis for confidence because in that town, you've got farmers coming into town, you've got a lot of workers, but we had a doctor, a dentist, a banker, and yet all those people blended together, went to the same activities, the same restaurant, the same church, and it made me realize that nobody's any better than anyone else. Nobody's any worse. We're all the same, and we all need to work together. So that was a really great growing up experience.
Okay, and where did you go to school?
Well, I went to a Catholic school for high school. I know that's a good question here in Hawaii. Where'd you go to school? And then I went to a Catholic girls' school and found out when I was there that I wanted to be a speech pathologist. So I ended up going to the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, graduating from there with a master's degree in speech pathology.
And what was your first job?
Well, my first job was actually when I was about 8 years old, babysitting. Then I had a series of jobs, being a server in a restaurant. I worked for the telephone company and actually had a little car that I drove around and introduced direct distance dialing to sales offices, such as real estate offices and insurance companies. So I guess that helped me to do cold calling. And then my first real job was as a speech pathologist.
And how did you get into real estate sales?
Well, when I was a speech pathologist, I worked primarily in a language development program for children that were ages 3, 4, 5 years old, who really had very little language skills. So I was teaching them things like sizes, shapes, colors. And after doing that for around 14 years, I found myself saying things like, "Oh, see the big house. It is white. It is square." And I said to myself, "Mary, you need to talk to adults more often." So I went out and got my real estate license, and that's how I ended up getting into real estate sales and working for a developer in one of my first jobs.
So now, how did you come to Hawaii?
Well, because I worked for that developer, another developer came into the office quite often. He got to know me, and he asked me if I would list his properties that he owned. He owned 4 or 5 apartment buildings that were being converted into condominiums. It was a point in time when that was happening. So I said, yes, I'd be happy to do that, but I have a full-time job. He said, that's okay. I know you can do it. So I want you to work for a certain company. I know the owner. I want you to go and talk to that owner. So I did. I interviewed, and he said, we don't hire part-time people. I said, well, I don't blame you, but I have 2 full-time jobs. That's how I look at it. I go every day after school at 3 or 4 o'clock when I'm done, and all day Saturday and Sunday. I probably work more hours than a lot of your agents. And he said, well, yes, you do. And that's how he said it. I said, he said to me, what is your current job? I said, I'm a speech pathologist. He said, oh, great. I'm a stutterer. Maybe you can help me. So that was kind of an interesting story for my first job. However, I did sell all of his apartment buildings or condos, and a guy in the office, one of the agents, kept calling me the condo queen. So a couple of years into it, a headhunter called me and said, I hear you're the condo queen, and we have a position for president of a division with Town Realty to sell 531 condominiums. Do you think you can do it? So I ended up getting that job. They wanted them sold in 5 years. I sold them in less than 3 years. They sent me to Arizona, California, Florida, and then they sent me here to Hawaii, where I opened up Launani Valley condominiums up in near Mililani. So that's how I got here.
So what's been your experience here in Hawaii? You've been here a long time.
Well, after 2 years, they did tend to transfer me around every couple of years. So they were going to send me back to Wisconsin. It was January, and it was 10 below zero. So I said, I think I want to stay here. I did some networking, and that's when I got a job as a director of sales and marketing for Schuler Homes. As time went on, Schuler Homes got bought out by D.R. Horton. I stayed with Schuler Homes and D.R. Horton, that company, for 29 years. My last job was actually Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing. Over that time, we, as a company, myself, were responsible for selling over 16,000 homes. Probably 60% of those here in the state of Hawaii, on all islands, and probably 60% of those homes were to first-time buyers. And about 40% were affordable homes. And so I've always been working with first-time buyers for all that time.
That's amazing. You sold that many homes. What advice would you give people who want to buy a home?
I would say, first of all, realize that your first home is not going to be your forever home. That in Hawaii, more probably than any other place, it's a process, and it's like climbing a ladder. So the thing to do is to get started, to get your foot in the door by saving some money, by keeping a job. Your employment is important. You need to get qualified by being in the same job for a length of time. 2 years is minimum. And if you're not in the same job, at least in the same line of work. You also want to get your credit under control and save your money for a down payment. So I'd say you have to do your homework, but that's the way to get started.
Good. So when would be a good time to buy, you think?
I always say the best time to buy is when you're ready. So people might say today, look, I'm a first-time buyer. The interest rates are 7%. How the heck am I going to buy now? Well, you can buy now. I bought my first home when I was 28 years old, and I think the interest rates were either 12 or 14%.
Wow.
So what I did is I bought a duplex. And that's harder to do here, but it's one idea. I bought a duplex. For half of it was paid for by the people who rented that half. And then I got a roommate to help me pay for the half I lived in. So I got my foot in the door by being a little bit creative. And sometimes that's what a person needs to do, is be creative.
Now, you told me that the lender was kind of discriminating against ladies, single ladies.
Oh, I did tell you that, didn't I? Yes, and that's true. because I was a single person, I went to the lender and he said to me, I can't give you a loan because you're single. What if you get pregnant and can't make your payment? I said to him, well, I'm engaged to an attorney, which was true at that time, and I'll be married in about 6 or 8 months. And he said, who's the attorney? I told him. He said, oh, I know him. All right, you're good. And that's how I got my loan. You could not do that today. That's against fair housing. But that was a long time ago, and people could get away with doing things like that. Now, first-time buyers would never be discriminated against in that manner. So things that are actually better now than ever for first-time buyers.
And I think you told me that there are more female buyers than male buyers.
There are, of single people, 13.9% are female and 11.9% are male. So, don't be afraid to buy if you're single. I've had people tell me, I don't want to buy when I'm single because then I might be tied down and somebody wouldn't want to marry me. And an appraiser said to me one time when I was that age, he said, hey, you're a good catch because you have equity. So anyway, I wouldn't be afraid to buy. I wouldn't wait because you're single. Another quick story is, excuse me, my sister's daughter is a single mom, and she's a principal of a Montessori school. So my sister set up a program for her daughter, that every month automatically $2,500 went into a savings account for a down payment. So at the end of the year, she had like $3,000. At the end of 3 years, she had $9,000. That allowed her to have a down payment and buy a home. So there's, like I said, be creative. Keep your credit good. If you keep your credit good, so you don't maybe have a car loan, so you don't have a lot of debt every month. If you don't have a lot of debt every month on your credit card, that's going to help you when it comes to get pre-qualified.
Okay. What's been your experience with Hawaii Homeownership Center in Hawaii?
Well, the Hawaii Homeownership Center has been around for almost 20 years. Maybe it is 20 years. I was part of the group that helped to get it started, actually, because I knew it was something we could definitely use here in Hawaii. And they have helped hundreds, literally hundreds, maybe by now it's thousands of people, to get pre-qualified, to get set up so they are able to buy a home. Sometimes people have trouble understanding how to make their credit better. You have a bad credit score. The Homeownership Center has classes that you can, first-time buyers can enroll in to help them get their credit score better, to learn how to save money, and that's the benefit. If you work with a realtor, the Honolulu Board of Realtors has partnered with HHOC, the Hawaii Homeownership Center. It costs $60 for their program, for their classes, but if you're working with a realtor and are referred, it only costs you $10. So it's a wonderful group that will help many people to get to the stage where they can purchase a home.
Okay. What does a person need to do if they want to buy a brand new home, like, say, D.R. Horton or Gentry Homes?
Well, actually, buying a brand new home is sometimes easier because a lot of times builders have programs for first-time buyers. For example, D.R. Horton at Ho'opili, which is a large new development out in Kapolei, still has buyers programs where buyers can qualify for zero down. The USDA program, you can go in with a zero down payment. VA program, you can go in with a zero down payment. And that lender that's affiliated with D.R. Horton has other programs for first-time buyers, because many of the homes that D.R. Horton sells, and actually the other developers as well, Castle and Cook at Coa Ridge, have similar programs to help first-time buyers.
Okay. Are there any special procedures to buy in a new home community?
It is a little bit different buying in a new home community than buying an existing home. One of the things that I always think of, having been in the position that I was for so many years and being a realtor for so many years, is if you're going to work with a realtor, make sure that you bring your realtor with you the first time that you go into an open house. because there's a rule that you must be accompanied by a realtor on your first visit in order for that realtor to be paid. Also, if you're going to register online, make sure you put your realtor's name down at that time. Your very first contact, whether it's online, in person, or on the phone, mention your realtor.
Yeah, because if you don't, the realtor may not get credit for that sale.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's a rule that's called procuring cause, meaning
Right.
the seller, the developer, wants to be sure that the realtor was responsible for bringing you to that community. Now, you can do your homework. You can, when you're working with a realtor, it's okay to go online and to search new homes in Hawaii, to find out the area that you want to be in and the price range you want to be in. But work with your realtor at all times. Don't go off on your own. That would be a piece of advice that I would tell you. Also, another thing about new homes is that even when they're selling, say, multiple communities at Ho'opili, sometimes they have single-family homes, they have condominiums, they have affordable homes. You need to find out how they're doing it. Sometimes they do it by first come, first serve. Sometimes they do it by lottery. Some builders have a waiting list. So you want to find that out, and your realtor can help you with that. But find out how they're doing it so you don't miss out. So you get on the waiting list or you get into the lottery and you find out how they're selling that particular community.
Now, on the affordable housing units, where you say the government says 40% or 50% or 60% of the homes have to be reserved for what we call moderate income or lower income bracket people, is there a buyback program that the government participates in?
That's another question that a first-time buyer, any buyer who's going to be in a program like that, needs to be sure to ask and to find out, because it's different in almost every single community, every single project. So sometimes there's a buyback. Sometimes there's shared appreciation. A buyback means that you can't sell to just anybody. You have to sell to someone who's qualified in the same manner that you were qualified, and you have to get permission from whatever program, the state or the city or whatever, HFDC, whatever the program is, in order to sell to somebody. You can't just decide to sell, especially if there's a buyback period of 10 years or 30 years in some cases. Shared appreciation means that for certain developments, not all of them, a percentage of your profit might have to go back to the city, the county, HFDC, whoever is structured that affordable housing program. And they're different. That's what you need to remember. Find out all about the one that you might enter.
I heard that on a recent project, excuse me, that the developer was told that there'd be a 30-year buyback program, and I heard it didn't go well, so that they reduced the number of years.
Yes, that can happen. Each project has a unilateral agreement with the city, state, whoever it is. And 30 years seems to be kind of a long time for most buyers. I have a friend who bought in an affordable program, and she is a single teacher, and she bought a studio. So I'm a little bit concerned for her because I think she's in the 30-year buyback program. And think about it, in 30 years, her life could change. I mean, she's single now. She has a studio. What if she gets married and has 2 kids? So, and each program has different reasons that you can get out of the 30-year period. So I think that in my experience, 10 years and 5 years work better than 30 years.
Okay. What are the pros and cons of buying in a new home community versus buying an existing home?
Well, buying in a new home community, I see mostly pros, but the cons might be that it's not in an area where you want to live. Maybe it's further away from your work than you want it to be. But the benefits are that the new home communities are usually master planned, so they have a lot more amenities. They have parks, and they sometimes, like Ho'opili, have schools right within the community. They have dog parks, they have pools, they have rec centers. They just have a lot more amenities, and they're designed for families. They have gone with the concept, they meaning developers, Castle and Cook, at Koa Ridge, D.R. Horton, Gentry. that you want to design something where you can live, work, and play within the same community. So those are some of the benefits of buying in a new home community. Also, they have CC&Rs, which are covenants, conditions, and restrictions. So you know that nothing crazy is going to happen in that community. Your neighbor is not going to paint his house purple and get away with it, or build a monster some structure in the backyard and get away with it, because that would be against their CC&Rs.
Okay. What is your advice on buying versus renting? I know you have some strong feelings about that.
Oh, I do, because I started out as a young person buying. That has helped me so much in my recent retirement. My goal back then was to buy 10 rental properties so that after years and years, I'd be able to sell each one for $100,000 and have $1 million. Well, my strategy changed, but I have to say that the rental properties that I own today, which are only like 4 of them, do help me in collecting that rent for me in my retirement. One of the things about buying versus renting is that you get appreciation. Oh my, and that you have equity in your home, and that it helps. I also think it's helpful for stability for your family to stay in the same neighborhood, to go to the same schools, perhaps if you're going to neighborhood schools. If something happens and you are running short of money, you can rent a room as opposed to being a renter who's at the mercy of a landlord. So there's many, many benefits to owning versus renting.
So let me ask you, you've been at this thing for quite a while. How long did D.R. Horton take to get the entitlements to build out Ho'opili? And can you give us a little background on the depth and scope of how big a project this was?
Well, Ho'opili is going to be a big project. It's going to be the residential component of the second city of Kapolei, even though it's actually located in Ewa, because the North-South Road puts it in the Ewa district. But it is the second city of Kapolei. It's going to be, believe it or not, 11,000 homes, but that's going to take 30 years, so it's not like they're going to appear overnight. One of the issues is that to get an entitlement, to have that change from agricultural land, which was never used, by the way, for about the last 30 to 50 years, into residential, took us over 7 years. In fact, I think Jim Schuler started it actually 15 years ago, and then it took the last 7 to finalize it. But it can take from 7 to 15 years to get a new community into residential and to get the entitlements. So that's one of the issues that we have with housing here in the state of Hawaii, all over the state, is that it takes so long to get entitlements, to get permits, that we are lacking in inventory. And if builders could build faster, that's what happens in other states. If you build faster, there's more inventory, and then the prices don't go up quite so high. And that's what we need to keep our kids here, to keep our grandkids here. We do need more inventory.
Now, we are running into the last 3 minutes of this show, but you've done sales on other islands with Jim Schuler and D.R. Horton.
Yes, there was a point in time about 3 or 4 years ago where we, D.R. Horton, had 2 projects on each island.
Wow.
And for example, on Kauai, and this is one of the things I always liked about my job, it was very diverse. On Kauai, we had an affordable community. And on the other end of Kauai, we were selling $1 million homes. So D.R. Horton has always provided homes for just about every price range and every family, every type of home that you could imagine, condominiums, townhomes. We also had a similar thing going on the Big Island. We had some very affordable, not in the affordable program, but $400,000 homes in Kona, and we had $1 million homes up in the Mauna Kea resort area. So D.R. Horton builds many, many homes all over the state, and as you said, is the #1 developer in the country for several years now, with the number of homes that they build.
Mary, I can't thank you enough for being here. You are a legend in real estate and also with the Building Industry Association, the Board of Realtors, and of course, everyone just loves you because of your volunteer work with nonprofits. So thank you for being here, folks. And thank you, viewers, for watching the show, and hope it was helpful to you. If you want to get email advisories to see a complete listing of our shows, you can sign up for them on thinktechhawaii.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another wonderful guest speaker, and it should be fun. The shows are available on ThinkTech Hawaii, and we hope to see you soon in the future. For more information on real estate education, please visit my website, abeleeseminars.com. I'm Abe Lee, host of Finding Your Piece of the Rock on ThinkTech Hawaii. Thank you very much. Aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.